Okay, thank you everybody. I'm MOYE Kongso, and my work is on the role of indigenous women in climate change adaptation, insights from the northwest region of Cameroon. This work was motivated by the fact that the northwest region of Cameroon is an ecological zone which is dominated by cattle rearing and crop farming, so it's a mixed farming zone. And the Mbororo pastoralists, who are the dominant indigenous people in this area, migrated into this region from the neighboring Nigeria as pastoral nomads. But with time, they get to sedentarize and started facing a lot of challenges. One of those challenges was competition over pastoral resources such as water and grazing land, which was already reducing. All these elements have made them to be vulnerable to the vagaries of weather. And we know nowadays climate change and climate variability is one of the most important environmental problems affecting mankind today. The indigenous women, in particular, and all women in sub-Saharan Africa, they are facing double challenges, basically because of discrimination against ownership of land, and then discrimination over the control of resources. So, with this situation and other aspects of discrimination, which were already characterized as the Mbororo problem in the northwest region of Cameroon, we came up with a guiding premise, which is seeking how to address the vulnerabilities of the Mbororo women who, by nature and by virtue of their tradition and religion, are already being discriminated upon. So, with that, we adopted a theoretical framework which is called the eco-feminist approach. This eco-feminist approach permits us to look at the relationship that exists between women and the environmental conservation. Eco-feminist scholars already indicated that the problems which women are facing today, in most cases, are resulting from the male dominated society in which we are. And in sub Saharan Africa, this situation is very, very rampant. However, in this work, we shall not focus more on the Western type of gender Western type of ecofeminism. We shall try to look at an African type of ecofeminism, which I would term an Afro ecofeminist approach. This approach, which uh, do not only look at women as a set of people who are vulnerable to the vagaries of weather, but rather consider African women and especially indigenous women are a group of people with a lot of traditional knowledge systems which can permit them to adapt to climate change and conserve the environment. We know that they have an intricable link with the nature, and as such, they can better control nature. So that is the approach that we are using to x-ray the relationship between this indigenous population and climate change adaptation in the northwest region of Cameroon. We adopted mostly a qualitative research approach in which we consulted archives in structures such as Boscoda, Mbororo Cultural and Development Association, and then we carried out 14 interviews, in-depth interviews with the Mbororo women, Mbororo groups, and activists who are working hard for the rights of the Mbororo woman in the northwest region of Cameroon. The data collected was analyzed in Alasti, where we transcribed the data word verbatim, and then we coded the data and proceeded with the treatment. The treatment was done in two ways. We looked at the groundedness and the density. Groundedness was just we look at responses, which the number of time which particular responses were given by the interviewees, and then we equally look at the relationship that existed between these responses. All of this helped us to come out with major results. The main result is that Borough women, apart from their discrimination, apart from their vulnerabilities, contribute greatly in climate change adaptation in this area. First, They are educators, they are climate change educators. In these areas, we have people who are called the climate seers. They are mostly the old. And recently, research has been indicating that most of these people are no longer active. Most of these people are dying out, and the youth are going to towns. Therefore, there is that gap. There was the need to transmit the old knowledge system to the younger generation. And our results are already showing that women are playing a greater role in this aspect. Secondly, women are highly involved in livelihood diversification. They are the main actors in the diversification of livelihoods. When climatic shocks struck them, most of the time they go out for greener pastures, and they stay behind with the children. In such situations, they have developed other methods to diversify from cattle rearing. They get to crop farming, they get to the milking of cattle, and then they are equally involved in the rearing of small remnants, smaller animals which, as compared to cattle, have lesser or more resistant to climatic abnormalities. Equally, women in this area are key actors. They are key actors in the implementation of certain policies, especially in environmental conservation. We have noticed that since they spend greater part of their time in the farm, they are used closer to nature, and at the end of the day, they master well how to better conserve this nature. But unfortunately, our results are showing that in the northwest region of Cameroon, the Mbororo pastoralists, especially the women, have been sent to the background. They are discriminated upon, first by their culture. The Mbororo themselves discriminate against their women because automatically they consider women as people who are supposed to stay in the house and take care of the family. So they don't participate in any decision making, they don't participate in seminars, and they remain highly vulnerable. As such, these studies is not the first in this domain, but a lot of works have been done in this issue of relationship between climate and the pastoral nomadic system. But very few have looked at this work from an eco-feminist perspective. So therefore, we are adding our voice to the UN, the International Panel for Climate Change Adaptation in 2015, where they already stipulated that for adaptation to be very successful, we have to develop not only a country-based and a region-specific adaptation, but it should be gender responsive and must include the views of the indigenous people. So, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude on this work, I would love to say that the main objective of this work was just to create the relationship, to see the vulnerabilities that exist among these women as far as climate change is concerned. And we have seen that they are highly vulnerable despite the rich knowledge system that they have that could be used and harnessed in adaptation. So as perspective, we can only call on the actors involved in the fight against climate change to adopt a gender perspective approach. Let women be given a central role in climate change adaptation, and let the Mbororo community equally reconsider their traditional values regarding women, because we think that women are the greatest part, they make a greater proportion of this population, and if they are kept in the background, they are going to remain vulnerable, and the entire household is going to remain vulnerable. Thank you for your keen attention.